Right now, there is a single three-digit or trillion-dollar number that is silently deciding exactly how much money is in your bank account, whether your boss is going to fire you tomorrow, and if the country you live in is considered a success or a total failure. It is called GDP, and most of us have no idea that this one metric is essentially the heartbeat of the modern world, yet it is fundamentally broken in ways that would absolutely blow your mind. Imagine for a second that the entire world is just one giant, chaotic shopping mall. Every single time you buy a $6 latte, every time a massive tech company sells a new smartphone, and every time your local government pays a contractor to fix a pothole, a giant invisible receipt is being printed out. That receipt is the gross domestic product. It is the total market value of every finished good and service produced within a country's borders over a specific period of time. It sounds like a dry, boring term from a high school economics textbook, but in reality, it is the ultimate scoreboard. It is the number that kings, presidents, and CEOs obsess over every single morning because, in our current system, if that number isn't going up, the world feels like it's ending. To understand how this number rules your life, you have to understand the recipe that makes it. Economists use a pretty simple formula, but the ingredients are massive. First, you have consumption. This is the biggest slice of the pie, especially in places like the US. It is you, me, and everyone else buying groceries, paying for Netflix, or getting a haircut. When we feel good and spend money, the GDP gets a massive boost. The second ingredient is investment. This isn't about your personal stock portfolio, it's about businesses spending money to make more money later. It's a factory buying new robots, a startup renting a bigger office, or a developer building an apartment complex. Then comes the third ingredient, government spending. This is every dollar spent on the military, public schools, highways, and even the salaries of the people working at the DMV. Finally, you have net exports, which is just the math of how much stuff a country sells to the rest of the world, minus how much it buys from them. You add all those up, and boom, you have the GDP. But why does this one number carry so much weight? Why do we care if it goes up by 2% or down by 1%? Because GDP has become our primary proxy for progress. When the GDP is growing, it means the economic pie is getting bigger. There is more money flowing, which usually means more jobs are being created, which means people have more money to spend, which makes the pie even bigger. It's a cycle of growth. But the moment that number stops growing, or worse, if it shrinks for 2 quarters in a row, we hit the R word, recession. The second a recession is announced, the vibes across the entire planet shift. Banks stop lending money because they are scared. Companies freeze hiring or start laying people off because they see the scoreboard dropping. Investors pull their money out of the stock market. Your life gets harder, your grocery bill feels heavier, and your job security vanishes, all because this one number ticked down. However, here is where the story gets strange and, honestly, a little bit scary. GDP is a cold, hard, unfeeling machine. It has absolutely no moral compass and no way to distinguish between good spending and bad spending. Think about this. If a massive, devastating hurricane hits a coastal city and destroys thousands of homes, that is a human tragedy. But for the GDP, it's a goldmine. Because now we have to spend billions of dollars on construction, thousands of people have to buy new furniture, and insurance companies have to pay out and hire adjusters. All of that spending makes the GDP spike. To the GDP, a natural disaster is a positive economic event. If a country has a massive increase in crime and everyone has to buy expensive security systems and hire private guards, the GDP goes up. If everyone gets sick and has to pay for expensive hospital stays and medication, the GDP goes up. On the flip side, some of the most valuable things in human existence are worth exactly zero in the eyes of the GDP. If you stay home to take care of your aging parents or your kids, you are doing some of the most important work in society. But because no money is changing hands, the GDP doesn't care. It doesn't exist. If you grow your own vegetables in a backyard garden instead of buying them at a store, you are actually hurting the GDP. If you walk to work instead of driving and buying gas, the GDP ignores you. This metric measures the how much, but it never once asks the how good. It measures the speed of the car, but it doesn't care if the car is driving off a cliff. The man who actually created this system back in the 1930s, an economist named Simon Kuznets, actually warned the US Congress about this. He explicitly told them that the welfare of a nation can scarcely be inferred from a measure of national income. He knew it was just a tool to measure production during the Great Depression and World War II, not a measure of human happiness. But we didn't listen. We turned his tool into a religion. We are currently living in a world where we are willing to sacrifice our sleep, our mental health, and even the environment just to make sure the GDP line keeps moving up and to the right. We treat the economy like a living thing that must be fed at all costs, forgetting that the economy is supposed to serve us, not the other way around. We are starting to see the consequences of this obsession. We have countries with record-breaking GDPs where the citizens are lonelier, more stressed, and more divided than ever. We are producing more stuff than at any point in human history, yet the feeling of prosperity isn't reaching everyone. That's because GDP doesn't care about inequality. If one billionaire makes an extra $50 billion this year, the GDP goes up, even if the wages for every other person in the country stayed flat or went down. It's a giant average that hides the struggle of the individual. So, where does that leave us? Some countries are finally trying to look at different scoreboards. Bhutan uses gross national happiness. New Zealand has a well-being budget that looks at things like mental health and child poverty alongside economic growth. They are trying to prove that you can't manage what you don't measure. If we only measure money, we will only care about money. But if we start measuring clean air, the time we spend with our families, and the health of our communities, maybe our leaders will start prioritizing those things too. The next time you're scrolling through the news and you see a headline about the GDP rising or falling, don't just see a number. See it for what it really is. A very limited, very old-fashioned way of looking at the world. It's a receipt, not a reflection of your worth or the health of your society. We are the ones who create the value, and we are the ones who get to decide what actually matters. We've spent nearly a century worshipping a number that doesn't know how to smile. Maybe it's time we change the scoreboard. If you want to understand the hidden forces that are actually running your life and how to navigate this crazy economy, hit that follow button and drop a comment below. Do you think we should stop using GDP as our main measure of success?